Hello and welcome to the Sana Psychological Podcast, your safe space for connection, healing, and growth. Each episode, our experienced clinicians and special guests will share strategies, stories, and resources to support your unique path to well-being. Because at Sana, your mental health matters. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Sana Psychological Podcast. Today, we're talking about something that affects almost every family at some point each year, the transition back to school. For many families, back to school season brings a mix of excitement and stress. There can be new teachers, classrooms, routines, and sometimes even entirely new schools. While advertisements often show smiling children and smiling, happy parents, the reality is that transitions can be emotionally and logistically challenging for both kids and parents. In today's episode, we'll explore why the return to school can be difficult, what parents can do to make the transition smoother, and how to provide emotional support to kids as they adjust to a new school year. Whether you have a child in kindergarten, entering middle school, heading into high school, or simply returning after summer break, this episode will offer practical strategies to help your family start the year with confidence. So let's begin by talking about why transitions can feel hard in the first place. Humans tend to like predictability. We feel more comfortable when we know what to expect. Summer often brings a different rhythm, so even adjusting into the summer routine can be challenging for families. It can mean later bedtimes, less structure, vacations, camps, and a lot more flexibility. Returning to school is another adjustment, and it means getting back to those new expectations, different routines, and often a lot more busyness for families too, as they enter back into school as well as extracurricular activities. For children, several factors can contribute to stress. Uncertainty and anxiety can be a big part of it. Children wonder about who their teacher will be. Will they like them? What friends will be in their class? What if I don't know anyone? What if school's too hard? Even children who generally enjoy school often feel nervous about the unknown. Children can also be challenged by the change in routine, that return back to early mornings, structured schedules, different expectations, homework, all require an adjustment in perspective and behavior. There's a lot of social pressures that young people face. So friendships may feel like they've shifted over the summer, and kids may worry about what that's going to be like coming back into the school year and navigating those changing social dynamics. There are also big developmental transitions that kids can face, especially when making those big jumps to new schools, but also just from year to year. So all of those bring entirely new environments, different expectations, and even more unknown because there can be a lot of change that comes along the way. Parents at the same time face their own set of challenges with back to school. There's the logistical overload, more forms to complete. There can be the financial outload of buying supplies, paying for school fees, getting back into, meal prep, lunches, transportation plans, and just overall lots of schedules to manage, including their own. There can be emotional concerns. Parents often worry about how their child's going to do, whether they're going to be happy, successful, socially connected, and just how they're going to adjust into this new year. There can be separation challenges. So this is true for parents of younger children, especially who are starting school for the first time. Watching your child become more independent can be exciting, but also emotional at the same time. I know there's a lot of parents who will talk about that feeling of just emotion and upset, as well as pride and joy when they're sending off their child to do something new, do something different. So whether that's a new year at school or starting daycare or going into an activity, it just can bring up a lot for parents that with their own busy lives, a lot of parents may not have time to really sit with those emotions. And of course, the biggest challenge, I think, for both parents as well as kids is just all the family routine changes that happen. Even just a change for one member of the household does affect everybody. So it starts to ripple down into sleep, meals, the busyness of the day, where people are at different times, the time that they have available for themselves, and balancing that with school and work responsibilities. There's a lot of reorganization that needs to happen. So, recognizing that these challenges are there is a really important first step. We want to acknowledge our experience and we want to validate our experience and normalize that whatever feelings you're carrying as you go into the back to school transition are anticipated. To think that you would go through a big transition without any feelings is pretty unrealistic. Stress during transitions doesn't mean that something is wrong or that we're doing something that we're not supposed to. It simply means that change is happening. So, how do we set up the transition for success logistically? Let's talk about some practical ways that families can prepare before school starts. So, one of the most effective things families can do is to gradually start shifting back to school routines and times at least a week or two before classes actually begin. So, this includes prioritizing earlier bedtimes, earlier wake up times, more consistent meal schedules, and working on reduced screen time before bed so that we really try and increase that quality of rest and start to get back into the routine so that, if your kid is going to bed at midnight, it's not such a big shift to scale that back to 9 p.m. when they need to wake up a lot earlier the next day. Those changes being done gradually before, I know our motivation to do them may not be super high, but any families that I've talked to who do that change, at least even a few days ahead of time, do say that it makes that transition back on the first day of school feel a lot less scrambly, a lot less stressful, and it really helps them out a lot. Preparing materials in advance can really also make a huge difference. It just reduces that last minute stress. So you may want to focus on purchasing any school supplies as early as you can, getting backpacks organized, doing any labeling of belongings, starting to plan different lunch options, review transportation arrangements and schedule. The more decisions you can make ahead of time, the calmer those first mornings and those first few weeks will feel. There's always going to be unexpected things that come up in life. And so, if we have some of the fundamentals already planned and already in order, it gives us more capacity to take on what else might come up in that unknown space, whether that's related to back to school or just other curveballs that life might throw your way. Practicing the routine ahead of time can be also very grounding and stabilizing for the whole family. So, for younger children or those entering a new school, you may consider doing a practice run. You may want to do the drive or the walk, the route to school, just to familiarize everyone with what that'll be like, how long it'll take, visit the playground, visit the schoolyard, review where children will be dropped off and picked up. And then when children can visualize what will happen, a lot of their uncertainty decreases. Obviously, you can't take them into the school. They're not going to know their teacher, their classmates. So that uncertainty is still going to exist. But if we can build some familiarity with the parts that are within our influence in those first few weeks before school, it may help them to be able to settle a little bit more and to be able to go into the transition with a little bit more groundedness. You may want to consider creating visual supports. Many children benefit from visual schedules, so these can be simple charts showing things like wake up time, when to get dressed, breakfast, reminders about packing backpacks, leaving for school. This can help children feel more independent and also reduce some of the power struggles during what often are busy mornings for families. Keep the expectations realistic. The first few weeks of school are an adjustment period for everybody. Families often benefit from limiting extra commitments during this time. So, being really thoughtful about what you're taking on socially and just any additional activities that you may be planning. If possible, you may want to book those a little bit later into the year just to give everyone a chance to adjust. Adjustment also can be quite tiring, so people might need more time for rest, slowing down, recuperation to just help with that adjustment period. So the logistics matter, but emotional preparation for back to school, I believe, is equally important. So, how can parents support that emotional transition for kids of all ages? I think one big thing that we can do is normalize the feelings that your kids are having. One of the most powerful things we can do is acknowledge that it's okay to have different emotions come up about school and anything for that matter. So that might sound like saying to them, "You seem excited about seeing your friends and maybe a little nervous about your new teacher, too." This also gives them an opportunity to share, communicate, and process some of their feelings. Sharing is a big part of how we emotionally process and cope. If kids feel that they have that opportunity to share their feelings without judgment and without having to pick one feeling or the other, they're allowed to feel excited, nervous, scared, happy, disappointed. They're allowed to feel all of that and so much more. This communicates that those feelings are acceptable and welcomed, and they normally then will start to want to share more. Young people don't need to feel that their feelings are being fixed. They often just need their feelings heard and understood. And that's true of people at any age. And it can be hard for parents to make that transition. We're used to taking care of and fixing things and doing things for our kids. To step back and listen, allow them to process and move through some of this on their own can be challenging, but very powerful when we can get there. As a continuation of that theme, I would encourage parents in this emotional support to listen more than you try and solve. A lot of times when kids express worries, parents sometimes rush to reassure or to fix or start to problem solve. And while reassurance can be helpful, I would encourage you to start instead with curiosity. So instead of immediately saying, "Don't worry, you'll be fine," which can feel invalidating, try, "Tell me more about what you're worried about. I'm curious to hear more about how you're feeling." These conversation starters invite sharing and help children feel heard. Share your confidence in your children's abilities. Children borrow confidence from the important adults in their lives. You can acknowledge challenges while also expressing your trust in them. For example, saying something like, "Starting a new grade can feel scary. I know you've handled new situations before, and I'll be here to support you." This balances that empathy with that confidence and trust in their capability. And anyone of any age lights up when they feel that trust, that encouragement, that validation from somebody, and children soak it up like a sponge. It's a really important part of the parent-child relationship. Parents can also watch for behavior changes. Children don't always express their stress verbally. What you might notice instead are things like increased irritability, trouble sleeping, more clinginess, physical complaints like stomach aches or headaches, and even emotional outbursts. These behaviors can signal adjustment difficulties, emotions that are coming up for them that they're having a hard time processing and releasing. Responding with patience and curiosity rather than punishment or trying to just shut the behavior down can help start to uncover what's underneath the behavior. You also want to protect connection. So during transitions, children and people often need extra connection, even though our instinct may be to isolate and pull away. Simple actions can make a big difference. Reading together, talking during dinner, going for a walk, spending 10 minutes of uninterrupted one-on-one time. These connection points help children feel secure while navigating change. They give them that safe base and that foundation from which to go forward and explore life and explore the challenges that are ahead. As we wrap up today's episode, I want you to remember that back to school transitions are rarely perfectly smooth, and they don't need to be. Some children adapt quickly, others take a little while to find their footing. Some parents feel relieved when school starts, while others feel quite emotional watching their children grow and become more independent. The goal isn't to eliminate all of our stress and all of our feeling. The goal is to create a supportive environment where children feel prepared, understood, and confident as they move through change. By focusing on both the practical preparation as well as emotional support, I believe that families can approach new school years and transitions with greater calm and resilience. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you found this conversation helpful, consider sharing it with another parent, caregiver, or educator who may be navigating the back to school season. Until next time, take good care of yourselves and each other. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the Sana Psychological Podcast. We're glad you joined us today. For more resources, free tools, or to book a session with our team, visit sanapsychological.com. Your mental health is our priority. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and take good care.